I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and this is another episode in the food and finance series because so many people love the restaurant and food related businesses, but they don't always understand the business side behind it because there is a very important business side behind it. And so I wanted to connect with Chris, who's the CFO over at Rethink Food, because one is their mission is awesome. His perspective as a CFO gives him an interesting perspective on food related businesses. And so I definitely wanted to bring him on the show. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Well, thank you. Very happy to be here.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely a pleasure. So before we jump into the details of Rethink Food and kind of your role there, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm originally from a small town in Alabama. I went to the University of Alabama. I have, of course, my national championship, University of Alabama banner, reigning national champions in football. Moved to New York after graduate school. Started working in consulting with Ernst & Young. Spent some time there working with companies going through financial distress and or bankruptcy. Then spent many years at Merrill Lynch and then Bank of America within the CFO's group. And then for the last year, I've been CFO here at Rethink Food. We're a nonprofit focused on developing new and innovative ways of addressing food insecurity.
Gotcha. Now, how was that switch of going from working in the CFO organization in banking to then CFO in non-for-profit? How did that switch work?
Well, I've always had a passion or desire to do well for myself personally, professionally, but also to do well for others. And while I was at Merrill, I used to volunteer with another food insecurity organization and get a firsthand look at just how prevalent the issue of food insecurity is. And food security is a first order need because if you're not food secure, it's very difficult to do anything else to improve yourself. And so when the opportunity with Rethink came along, this opportunity to be CFO of an organization that's been rapidly growing. We experienced some very significant growth last year. So to do well, like I said, personally, but also to do well for my community, society, and other people.
I think that's an amazing thing because we often talk to a lot of small business owners and a lot of leaders within larger organizations, and they just talk about how, that desire to give and to make an impact has played such a huge role in them being able to do what they currently do, and just even the opportunity that they see ahead is just that spirit of giving has always been active in them.
Yeah, and that's kind of how my parents raised me to be, to have that spirit of giving. And I think, one of the great things about, working for any business or having your own business is that, there are ways that you can contribute to your community and do well for yourself as well as doing well for the community and for other people. And I think that, any opportunity that other people have to do that, they should definitely take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And so, food security and food insecurity, just the whole subject matter of that is something that, a lot of people don't realize like how big of an issue that is. And I know last year I did some work with my undergraduate university where, helped them create a campaign to kick off a food pantry because there were so many college students that when they weren't at school, they weren't eating. And so when campuses started shutting down, it wasn't just, hey, you don't have class. For many of them, it was they didn't have access to food. And it really dawned on me. It's like, wow, this issue is like much bigger than I realized. I mean, from your perspective, coming into Rethink Food, were you surprised at how big the issue was as you started to learn more, or did you already kind of have an idea how big the issue was?
Yeah, I had some idea of, of how big the issue was, but I think, last year with COVID, it really exacerbated it because as you know, a lot of restaurants were forced to shut down because of different orders to try to contain the virus. And a lot of people who work at restaurants also take advantage of what's called family meal, being able to eat at the restaurant. So not only did they lose their livelihood from being able to work and receive income at the restaurant, but they also lost the access to food that they were able to get from the restaurant. So it was a double whammy. And the hospitality industry was hit extremely hard last year, and so food insecurity was really really exacerbated a lot worse than historically it's been.
Wow. And that is an aspect that I don't think a lot of people really understand or ever thought about, like with, with the workers in a restaurant, to where it's like, that may be how they're, supplementing the meals that they are able to eat and how they're able. So I'm very curious, with Rethink Food, how does the business model work to really, address this problem?
Sure. So with Rethink, we have three primary programs. Our primary and probably biggest program is called Rethink Certified. And Rethink Certified is a grant program. So what we do is we give grants to restaurants, and particularly during COVID, a lot of restaurants, like I said, were closed. So we would give them a grant to reopen, re-employ their staff, and then they would create meals that would then be distributed and donated to community service organizations and other people who were experiencing food insecurity. Our second program is we have a commissary kitchen. So we have our own commissary kitchen. We have a trucking team. So we have our commissary kitchen historically has brought in, food from leftover food from restaurants, other places, and then we'll make meals on our commissary and then use the trucking team to help distribute it. And then our third pillar of our organization is the Rethink Cafe. Right now, we have one freestanding cafe in Brooklyn. Very very delicious food for all of your listeners who are in Brooklyn who want to stop by. And it's a donation based model. So if you can donate, we would love for you to do so. But if you can't and just need a meal, just come in, grab a meal, and then just and grab a meal and go. So those are the three primary programs we use to try to help alleviate it. And with the Rethink Certified program, not only does it, like I said, it gives grants to restaurants to reopen. And now, as we come out of COVID, a lot of restaurants are still in the program. They may be doing less meals because, of course, they have a lot more operations with their regular customers. But it also, but it still provides them with a steady source of income that they know is going to be always there on a weekly basis.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I'm curious, with the from your perspective as the CFO of Rethink Food. I mean, when you're thinking about, like the business model, what you guys are doing, you guys have a great mission. As you started to be, or I guess when you became the CFO, was there anything about the business model that jumped out to you, like, hey, we should tweak this, or hey, what can we do here to evolve it?
Yeah, the biggest thing when we started, because I guess a step back, his how Rethink was originally founded was to rescue food and then take it to the commissary kitchen and then provide, make meals and distribute. With COVID, one of the reasons why we kind of, went to our primary program, Rethink Certified, was because, we had one central location and we were concerned if something happened, our commissary, there was a case, it had to close down, and then, we wouldn't be able to service, or provide meals to the people in need. So we decentralized the model with Rethink Certified by giving grants to restaurants. So a big thing, what we're trying to do now is we're really trying to provide meals or use restaurants to provide meals in communities closest to them. So we can also build that relationship between the community and the restaurant. So a big part of when I became CFO, like I said, we experienced rapid growth last year, particularly from a donation standpoint. And so a big part of what I was brought in to do is to help professionalize the finance organization, put much more data focused metrics in place so that we can really measure our impact much better, and then also determine the areas that we really want to expand operations in where we can have more impact and help to really address and alleviate food insecurity.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that one is, I think that's an amazing strategic move of, using such a distributed supply chain of, restaurants already have their operations up and running. And it's just like, wow, I think that was probably an amazing shift for you guys.
Yeah, it was a very 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 big shift. Clearly we had to hire new people. We developed a software program called Xylem that really helps us to connect the restaurants and the community service organizations so that they can put in orders. Then they can schedule deliveries, and then the community service organizations give feedback on the meals. So there's a continuous loop of communication between the two organizations. So that's the other aspect that we're also building a tech component where, like I said, we kind of connect all the parties within the chain. So it's been very interesting, very exciting. to be a part of an organization that's really innovative, really growing. And I guess I should mention right now we have we're headquartered in New York, but we also have programs in San Francisco, Chicago, Nashville, and we are actually expanding to Washington D.C. So we are going national. So it's also very very nice to be a part of a national organization.
Awesome. So, speaking of that, how can, restaurants in those locations, if they're saying like, "Hey, I want to become, Rethink certified," like, what would be the way for them to get in touch with Rethink, or how would that process look?
Yeah, I would say first go to our website, rethinkfood.org. There is a form where you can go on the website and apply to be a part of the program. Or you can, if you want to contribute or help in other ways, there's also information you can do that. There's also information you can contact us directly. We're really tech focused, so definitely take advantage of that to reach out to us. Or you can reach out to me directly at Christopher H at rethinkfood.org.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, one of the other questions I have is, when you think about, just the mindset of thinking about the business model and how you thought about, the business of banking when you worked in the banks, and now coming over to, Rethink, it's how much have you seen change in the way you think about how you run the business from moving from banking to non-for-profit with Rethink?
Yeah, I was gonna say that one of the reasons why I think I was hired was because I could bring expertise in certain ways of doing things, from a for profit to the nonprofit world. So, for example, like I say, we're really focused on being much more data focused, data driven, and metric focused. One of the things that we did clearly at the bank, we developed KPIs, key performance indicators. We really measured our performance against that. So things like that I've been able to bring to the nonprofit world, which historically a lot of nonprofits may or may not have been quite so heavily focused on data or KPIs, and really really trying to manage it as a business. And that's we although most of our money comes from donations or corporate sponsorships, we speak of revenues here. Everyone talks about revenues. So just having that, that mentality of actually running it like a business is something that I, really been able to bring.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Now, one more time, what's the website where people can go if they want to learn more about Rethink, and also if they want to support and they want to donate?
It's rethinkfood.org.
Awesome. I love it. Now, before we wrap up, one final question I like to ask, because I always enjoy asking this one to every guest that comes on, is, when you think about, the journey that you've had, and you think about, your current experiences, being that we are talking about the food industry, what's one or two lessons that you would share with restaurants or food related businesses?
I would say the first would be, always be focused on customer and look for ways to change. I think that, particularly a lot of our restaurant partners, when they experienced COVID, because they were so customer focused, they had great relationships with their customers. They were able to reach out to their customers in their time, in their time of distress, and do fundraisers and other things to, to help them to alleviate and help them through this, period of time. The other big part I think is, you always have to be flexible. It's like, like you mentioned, we did make that shift from what I consider a centralized model, i.e., just focus on the commissary kitchen, to a decentralized model where we're focused on restaurants. So always be thinking and looking for ways to pivot, particularly in adverse situations. Clearly a lot of restaurants, went, very heavily in takeout, in other areas of trying to just kind of keep the business going. But I think even during good times, you have to be really conscious of what are the customer trends and how trends are changing with customers, and trying to be proactive to stay in front of that, because the last thing you really want to be is to be on the tail end of a trend, because that could negatively impact your business.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming by. It's been a pleasure having you on to hear a little bit more about Rethink Food and also to let the audience know about, an amazing organization that is tackling a very, very serious issue. And congratulations on the nationwide expansion as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I definitely appreciate it. Had a great time. Really enjoyed speaking with you and as well as with your audience.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you like what you heard, don't be selfish. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and then share this with a friend because you know a business owner that could definitely use this insight. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and turn on the notification bell so you get all the updates when we release a new episode.